and welcome to the morning program. I am Reverend Jessica Vacketta, guest hosting again this week. Thank you for joining us. And our guest today is Reverend Kera Watts, our Minister of Children and Families here at UCC. Thank you for joining us, Reverend Watts.
I am thrilled to get to be a part.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Also my neighbor next door in the office suite.
That's right.
She can't get away from me. So this week we are continuing in the Gospel of Mark. So we're still in chapter 1. Last week, if you remember, we talked about Jesus is kind of establishing his ministry, and he exorcised this demon, and the text really established his authority as something different, as a teacher, as one that is called as this prophet and someone of God. So this week we are, and if you recall at the end of the scripture last week, his fame was starting to spread. They didn't really want it to, but his fame was starting to spread. So now we are still in chapter 1, and we are taking a trip to Simon's house, one of the 4 disciples that have been called thus far. And that is where our story picks up. So, Mark, chapter 1, verse 29 through 39. Here we go. As soon as they left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now, Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sunset, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons. And the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases and cast out many demons. And he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place. And there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring towns, so that I may proclaim the message there also. For that is what I came out to do." And he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. The end. Let me start the timer as you digest that piece of scripture. Right?
It is a lot. So much happens.
So much in just 10 verses.
Right.
So as you heard that passage this time, what kind of jumped out at you, or what are you percolating in the brain there?
To me, it is that space between Jesus going to pray, to be alone, and then being basically chased down by the disciples, and then saying, "Okay, let's go. This is what I came to do." And just curious about what was going on in that time period. I don't know. That's just an interesting short span of time where Jesus has been doing all of this stuff.
A lot of stuff.
He had a very long to-do list.
Let me take a breather.
Yes.
To go.
Oh, yes.
Pray.
I thought you were going to take a breather.
No, I'm not taking a breather. I feel like Jesus might have been like, I just need to go center myself, spend a little time in prayer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think we talk about that a lot, that Jesus went away to be alone to pray. Mm-hmm. But what I hadn't really thought about was he was called back very quickly.
Yeah,
in this
and
scripture passage.
The word that they used, and Simon and his companions hunted for him. I mean, it just seems like an aggressive type of searching for Jesus. Like they were.
Yeah, and I'm reading from a different translation that we use with our children, and it says, "And when they found him, they said, 'Everyone's looking for you.'" Come on.
Everyone.
You're sitting here praying, and everyone is looking for you. And instead of Jesus saying, give me a second. I've got this. He says, well, we must go because I have work to do and this is what I'm here to do. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I
think it speaks to the power also of this differentness of Jesus,
Yeah.
you know, and this authority that we kind of see established in the passage before this text in Mark, and how, you know, even though he doesn't really want like everyone to go out and talk about this, people are.
Right.
I mean, people are hooked. They're like wondering, who is this man? What is he doing? Like, they are drawn to him.
Right. And they're hunting for him because people are probably at the home knocking on the door saying, we hear Jesus is here. Where's Jesus? Where's Jesus? Mm-hmm. And they're saying, we don't know where Jesus is. I don't know. We've lost Jesus.
Oh crap, we have to go find Jesus.
Yes, we have to find Jesus because people are looking for Jesus and they need stuff that we can't provide. Mm-hmm. They didn't try to say, you know, give us a minute, you know, what can we help you with? They said, okay, we'll go hunt for Jesus because clearly we don't have what they need. Mm-hmm. I just think that's a powerful moment for Jesus to be caught in that place of needing space and clearly being in this prayerful conversation and creating time for himself to do that, and that necessity of, okay, I've got to get going. You're right. Let's go. Here we go. Well, I feel like we live like that all the time. I feel like, I mean, just that constant.
When you say we, do you mean like society as a whole, or like
you as
society, a clergy person?
I think society as a whole. I think maybe I feel it a little more intensely because of being in ministry, but I think that idea of trying to set aside space and time for prayer and for quiet, and yet feeling that somebody's looking for you, you're needed elsewhere, and knowing that you're right, I have a lot on my to-do list today. Here I am. Let's go get busy doing that. I think that's also it's the differentness of Jesus, but it's also the humanity of Jesus sometimes.
Like, just when you said that part, like listening to you talk about this piece, I wonder too, you know, it kind of made me think of parents, you know. I'm not a parent, but of just this little respite, this little time where you know, Jesus did go and set it aside. Like, he sought it out. Right. But when the disciples came, or Simon and his companions, we don't know if they were the disciples or not there, but he was like, okay, you know, he had the space, but it's like, now it's time. Right. Now it's time to continue the work.
And he stopped. Mm-hmm. We assume, I would assume in that moment, he doesn't say, give me another minute, which in the past, in other scripture passages, we see Jesus setting out that time a little more carefully.
Well, it kind of ties into, like, you know, Mark in general, like this urgency, you know, and it's
That's true.
Sorry, we don't have any time for you to just like, let me finish this. Yes. It's like, all right, on to the next thing now. Right. You know, like we checked off the list that, you know, Jesus has to go out and seek time to pray, like in a deserted place by himself, and now they come and they need him, so it's on to the next thing, and this important ministry continuing, kind of more of like the propheticness of, you know, we've got to go to all these towns and start preaching and telling the story. Which
is, I think, why I like Mark too. Because I think we all live in this very urgency type society, and so it's like, okay, check that, like you said, check that box. What's the next thing? What's the next thing we need to do? So.
Well, and in this one, you know, what's interesting, the last verse here, and he went throughout Galilee proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons, you know. So this proclamation that was happening, this spoken word, and then also the action piece to it of the casting out demons. And in the last scripture, it was a casting out of a demon. But if you jump to the first part of this, it establishes like a different element of the, you know, sort of restorative, you know, resurrection power of Jesus. It almost foreshadows, I think, what is to come when you talk about Simon's mother-in-law.
that he took her hand and she was suddenly without fever
Right?
and well enough to get
yeah,
up.
right? Yeah.
And serve them.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
who's the them?
I don't know.
Like, what does the serving involve?
I don't know.
Because that word serve,
Mhm.
you know, it kind of goes back to that it's the root of our word deacon too.
True.
You know, so some people argue, if you read a little of
Mhm.
the history of the text here,
Right.
you know, a little research I did, that this Simon's mother-in-law was truly like the first deacon of the church.
Oh, yeah. Which, from Mark's perspective, again, as he often puts women into these places that we would not expect them to be, given the time that it was written, that's a really powerful thing. I wouldn't have thought about that.
Right?
Yeah.
I know.
like that.
It's another female that we don't know her name.
Right.
We just know that she's Simon's mother-in-law. Which when I first read this too, I was kind of like, wait, hold on. Like, Simon's mother-in-law? I guess I just didn't think of, you know, it's kind of the humanity, like, you know, you talked about
Right.
the humanity of Jesus here later, of the disciples. You know, we
Right.
read earlier, we just read that they left their jobs, they left their families, they, you know, kind of left everything behind, yet they still have this house.
Right.
And in this house is Simon's mother-in-law. Like, I don't know why, but reading this scripture for this time, I'm like,
Wait.
whoa,
So Simon was married.
yeah.
Were there other people that he left behind? I mean, to go follow. I mean, that's.
You kind of think about that, but
Yeah.
and he also left them behind. But at the same time, you know, one of the first, I mean, this act here is Jesus. You know, the previous one was in the synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is Jesus going into one of the disciples' homes
Right.
to form, you know, this miraculous act of, I'm going to touch this woman and heal her and, you know, restore her, and then she's
Right.
willing to serve.
That's pretty remarkable and personal.
And personal, yeah.
So personal.
It also makes me have so many questions. So I'm like,
Wait.
why have I not thought of this earlier? And now I'm just fixated on, like, these four. And,
Mhm.
you know, because sometimes it's, I think we can lean into the fact of, like, they left everything and followed Jesus, which is, you know, part of that. You know,
Right.
you leave behind the things, you know, you hope that your own personal demons that you're wrestling with, you know, like Jesus will cast those out.
Right.
But it is, you know, Jesus is still here with their family.
Right.
Like, their family is still part of their life, at least at
And
this,
the ministry that's happening.
in the ministry that's happening,
or
yeah.
beginning to happen in the midst
Yeah,
of all of
and
this.
all these people are coming to Simon's home to you know, find out more about Jesus and to potentially be healed. And you know, it kind of, oh, stop timer, we know it's 10 minutes. Okay, but it just makes me think of, you know, also this as another little, like, the evangelism side of things,
Right.
of getting out and going, like going into
Right.
the home. And then when Jesus was away, they went out into the community of Galilee, and they started, you know, preaching this
Right.
all around.
And
so,
they kept going.
yeah.
And it didn't stop.
Well,
I think we did okay.
we did all right. That was once again a very rich text from
Right.
the Gospel of Mark. So thank you for joining.
Yeah, this was
me
fun.
today.
Glad to be a part. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully, this passage has made you see something new or think about something that you haven't before. So thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your week.